Hey, good afternoon, and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues, primarily self-defense. We post a new show every Friday at around 5 p.m. or just a few minutes after. It's the internet, we're kind of laid back. But the show appears on YouTube as well as a lot of other media and on our website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin. If you're on any of those, I would encourage you to hit subscribe to whichever medium you're getting it on, and then the shows will come to you automatically about a day after they are aired. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners all over Nevada. It comes on Saturdays at noon. On the Nevada Talk Network. You can find them at KELY, 1230.com. It runs simultaneously on 10 or 12 stations now throughout Nevada and a few other places. If you have questions or comments, you can send me an email to bob@firedupmail.com. All that information will appear on the bottom screen, so I'm only going to say it once so you can get it. Or you can leave a message on my home office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, we will respond. We respond to all contacts, usually within a day or two. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week. In the United States. They're rarely covered by the mainstream media unless they're negative, of course. So I always pick a few of those. The idea is to educate our listeners to what went right, what went wrong, what you could have done, what you should have done. It's not to second guess the people on the scene. It's to look at it from a viewpoint a few steps away to see what could have happened that made it better or worse, what to do, what not to do. It educates you. As we are a nationwide show, we generally look at incidents as they would be handled under local law in Nevada. And so the disclaimer here is the advice we give on the show should not be taken to heart if you live someplace other than Clark County, Nevada. The rules are different wherever you go, and local law always prevails. If you're involved in an issue already, then you need to contact me and we'll give you the name of an attorney in the area, or my general attorney, Don Green, will give you the name of an attorney to take your case. But it's going to have to be a local lawyer. Otherwise, we're kind of just guessing depending on what their case law tells them it is. My guest today is my good friend, firearms instructor, Lenny Davis. Lenny, if you'd give a little bit of your background one more time,
Sure.
In case there's someone out there.
I don't know if there is, but
we've got a lot of new listeners. We're going nuts on Facebook.
That's awesome. Well, as Bob said, my name's Lenny Davis. I'm a retired special agent, Department of Homeland Security. I've been a firearms instructor since 1980, and I'm currently an adjunct instructor for the U.S. Department of State's Global Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. And I am also the owner and chief operating officer of SRT Special Services. We are a full-service security, private investigations, and training company based here in Las Vegas.
And you train
security
officers?
We train security officers. We do CCW. We do private personal protection. We're still doing law enforcement and some military training.
All right. We are, this first story comes from WMBF TV. It's Raycom Media on the 23rd of last month. This is in Robeson County, North Carolina. The story says deputies were investigating after a man was shot multiple times Friday night while inside a woman's storage building. According to the news release from the county sheriff's office, deputies responded to a home in the 5,000 block of East Great Marsh Church Road. Must have long street signs in it. But anyway, in St. Paul's around 6:40 in the evening. Upon their arrival, a 39-year-old man was found shot multiple times. The 68-year-old woman who owns the residence heard a noise inside her storage building and found a man standing in a corner inside that storage building. The woman fired 5 shots at him after he approached her in an aggressive manner, that in quotes in the article. She further stated the man was lunging towards her. He was taken by EMS to an undisclosed hospital for treatment. His injuries, fortunately, do not appear life-threatening. This is one of these cases where it's, it looks like kind of a he said, she said. Fortunately, as I said, wasn't severely injured. It appears he will survive. It's certainly reasonable for the woman to check for noises in her outside storage building before bothering the police. We're all going to have a tendency to do that. Most often they're small animals or items that fell over from wind or something that created the suspicious sounds. This one turns out to be an aggressive human intruder. Fortunately, this 68-year-old woman was smart enough to have her firearm with her when she went out to check. You can read this story any way you want if you take that fact out of it and look at what would have happened to her. The investigation is ongoing, and the intruder stories has not yet been heard. But the shooting, apparently, according to the police, the shooting appears to be certainly justified. And I would have to, on the face of it, agree. Fortunately, she had a firearm.
Yeah, and as we were talking about on camera, off camera, that we were looking at this. There's a couple of different ways you can think about this. I mean, one, she was smart enough to take her own gun with her to defend her, to arm herself. She surprised this guy in the shed. And, again, we don't know, was he trying to burglarize the shed, what was going on, but he was, basically in her property. Probably a burglary, I would hazard a guess. And he came at her, and if he did lunge at her aggressively, as she says, it should be a good shooting. The forensics of this should be pretty easy to figure out as far as where she was at, and when she fired, and where, if his hands were up, where he was taking rounds, that type of thing. So that should be pretty easy to shake out. Again, the only thing that, Bob, the only thing we were talking about earlier was her tactics of whether or not maybe she'd go out and check should have gone out and checked the shed by herself or not. Of course, nobody wants to call 911 to have a squirrel removed, but
Right.
In this case, it might have been something she could have thought about. But other than nitpicking tactics, she came out on the right end of this.
Yeah. It appears to be a fine shoot. And as I said at the outset, fortunately the guy wasn't killed, because if we have now a dead guy and it's he said, she said, and she would really be in the woods in most jurisdictions. Fortunately, he survived. We get comments often online, and you see it on television shows all the time, that dead men can't sue you, and so forth and so on. And those stories are just absolutely wrong. The lawsuits for wrongful death are for much greater amounts. If you're criminally wrong, the penalties for murdering somebody is much greater than wounding him. When you see those stories, it ain't true, folks. You're better off the guy survives. Do what you can to help him survive. It's going to turn your life upside down in most cases anyway, but at least you won't be looking at a murder charge or manslaughter charge.
Well,
you'll be looking at a medical bill for
right.
scrapes and bruises.
And again, it's the use of force, and it's is the force that you're using, is it justified? Is it equal to stop that, to overcome the force that was brought against you? So the old saying, well, I'll shoot him and drag him into the house, as we've heard a million times before, is the dumbest thing in the world, folks. If anybody spent 20 minutes watching a episode of CSI, they're going to know that it's not going to take them very long to figure out that you shot that guy where you shot him wasn't where you say he shot him, and that's going to cause you the problems.
Yep. Don't change the crime scene. Don't lie about what happened. If you're uncomfortable with it, just say, I live here, this is my gun, I don't know the guy, I'd like to talk to an attorney. Don't make statements when you're in this state of mind, and you'll save yourself a lot of issues. And certainly don't shoot somebody that you don't need to shoot. This is from KMIZ, it's ABC TV 17 and KQFX Fox TV 22 on the 30th of last month in Miller County, Missouri. The Miller County Sheriff's Office says its deputies responded to a home in the 100 block of Old Bagnell Road in Elton, Missouri on Monday, that would be July 23rd, for a reported shooting. This story is carried a week later. Deputies said the victim was found with non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the arm and was taken to the hospital. Investigators told ABC 17 News that deputies learned during the investigation the gunshot victim unlawfully entered the home with a hatchet and made threats toward the owner. This is a much cleaner case to look at. The homeowner reportedly got into a fight with the person and shot the intruder once as they entered the home. Miller County Prosecutor Ben Winfrey said the shooting was justified based on preliminary information his office has received, but the case is still under review, of course. The name of the wounded intruder or what charges that person could face has not been released. One of the things we always look at is time of day and time of night. And it's really important to whether the parties involved could see what was going on. And in this case, I read through several of the reports and nobody reported the time of day or night. It's not in the police reports that I could find. So in any case, when you're facing an intruder in your home with a hatchet, deadly force is clearly justified in this case. One shudders to think what would have happened if the resident had not been armed when a guy comes into your house at whatever time of the day or night with a hatchet. You need to bring a gun. I just, this is, you just shudder to think what would happen to the homeowner if he wasn't armed. It's just, what do you do with a guy with a hatchet?
You do exactly what this person did, get a firearm and shoot the bugger.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's going to come in and try to do a Lizzie Borden impression on you. As we've said millions of times before, don't bring a hatchet or a knife to a gunfight, and that's what happened here. But a hatchet or any type of cutting instrument, they're horrific wounds. I've seen several victims who have been in knife fights. I saw one that was the victim of a true machete fight. That was horrific. It's not Game of Thrones. It's not. It's pretty ugly. I don't. Law enforcement, they started the 21-foot rule that if a person had a knife and he was 21 feet away from you and you didn't have your gun out of the holster, you were probably going to get stabbed before you'd stop that guy. That's now opened up to about 30 to 35 feet, depending on the training agency. So a knife or a cutting instrument, and a hatchet especially, if you know what you're doing with a hatchet or a tomahawk, or the nowadays there are people who are making some very good tactical tomahawks, and you go, tomahawks, this isn't the 1840s. Trust me, then in close quarters combat, they can be devastating weapons. So if you come across somebody that knows how to do that, you better be good with your handgun, because if you're not, you're going to be hurting.
Yeah, this is obviously a much more clean-cut case. And as I say, you shudder to think what would have happened to this guy if he didn't have a firearm. Keeping a firearm in your home is like keeping a fire extinguisher in case the stove catches fire. It's not, you hope you never have to use it, but you've got to bring one. And as Lenny alluded to, one of my regular attorneys, I have to add this to the list with never bring a hatchet to a gunfight. I'm sure this guy, the intruder, didn't realize he was bringing a hatchet to a gunfight, but Wow.
Well, and
You got to have a gun in your house.
yeah, and it's better to the old saying. There's two sayings that they're a lot of people go, oh well, they're like off of T-shirt. Well, you know what? They're really truisms in this world, and that's better to have one and not have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Okay, and it's always be prepared, and if you're not ready to go, and if you're not trained with a handgun, if you use a handgun to defend yourself, you better know how to train. So you will hear us always on this show talking about training. Continue to train. Get good training. Continue to train. It's firearms a very perishable skill. And the other little truism that you need to know is, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. They're just that's life.
Yeah. Here comes a guy with a hatchet. Call 911 and wait. Lenny touched on the 21-foot rule from the old movie Surviving Age Weapons, and I've personally blown that up in court 6 or 8 times. That, as Lenny said, at 21 feet you get stabbed every time. It's much further than that. There's a lot of research done, and Danny and Santos guys who produced that tape and talked about that distance. We're talking about police officers with duty holsters, knowing the guy's going to charge. It takes you about 1 second to realize, oh my God, there's a guy there with a hatchet. That 1 second makes the distance now 14 feet, 10 feet, depending on his charging speed. You have no chance. It's well beyond 21 feet. But anyway, we're going to take a moment here to break for a short commercial, and we'll be back in just a second. Don't go away.
My name is Jerry Creed, and I'm a gun trust attorney. If you want to own an NFA firearm, a gun trust is a great way to own it because it allows multiple people to lawfully possess a firearm instead of just a single individual. I have reviewed lots of gun trusts, and I have found they often don't include the forms you need to bring people on as trustees and remove them as trustees. In addition, a gun trust will save you the cost of probate and avoid probate, and it can protect your executor and family members. There isn't an element of intent in these laws that affect the NFA firearm possession. So it doesn't matter if your wife didn't intend to sell the gun at a garage sale or yard sale, or your daughter didn't intend to drive the car with the silencer in the trunk. A gun trust is a great way to protect your family members and friends and share in the fun and pleasure of owning NFA weapons. If you want a gun trust done right, remember to trust Jerry.
And we are back. Jerry Creed is a good guy. If you have a firearms trust or need one, all the rules have changed. Contact Jerry. His contact information is on our website also. This is from WBAL TV 11 NBC. That's NBC on the 31st of last month in Aurora, Colorado. A man who fatally shot an intruder in his suburban Denver home early Monday was killed by responding officers who saw him holding a weapon, investigators have noted. I hate these. Police received multiple calls about a break-in at a home at about 1:30 a.m. When officers arrived, they heard gunshots inside. That's according to the Aurora Sentinel. Aurora police, who described the scene in a statement as very chaotic and violent, they said they encountered an armed man and fatally shot him. That man turned out to be the person who lived in the home. A second man, the suspected intruder, was found dead during the search. A child also suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries in the hands of the intruder, but police did not release additional details on that, citing the ongoing investigation. This is very heartbreaking and a tragic situation for everyone involved, said Police Chief Nick Metz. Investigators not released the names of the resident or the suspected intruder, and the officer has been placed on administrative leave, as you would expect. This only happened 10 days ago. No winners. One of the things that everybody who teaches firearms who has any sense, one of the big points is you always put the firearm away or out of your personal reach when responding officers are arriving. If you have a situation where the intruder is still upright and you're not sure, you've stopped him, whatever it is, you point the gun at the ground and the officer will yell, "Drop the weapon," and then you drop the weapon. I know it's going to get dinged up. No modern firearm's going to go off when you drop it on your carpet or on the floor. Anyway, it just virtually never happens. I've had a lot of cases where people claimed it happened, and it never seems to work out that it really happened. The officers will identify themselves. They'll be yelling, "Police, police, drop the weapon, drop the weapon." Do that. One would assume the officers identified themselves, but perhaps in this confusion, the resident didn't hear them. Who knows? This will be a long, drawn-out case. Like I say, it's a tragedy all the way around. I charge on.
Well, and you hit it right on the head. This has happened before. Unfortunately, it's happened many times where the actual person who defended themselves in a robbery or a home invasion were encountered by the police when the police arrived, and they said, they got a call, man with a gun. It really, you hit on the one really big point too, Bob, is the fact that this is a chaotic situation, folks. I mean, it's a gunfight. It's a gunfight without hearing protection. It's a gunfight inside a house. It's going to be loud. I don't care what you're shooting, it's going to be loud. You're also going to get a big dump of endorphins and adrenaline, and you're going to get what's considered tunnel hearing and tunnel vision. Your whole world's going to collapse to what's in front of you. Your hearing is going to collapse to what's in front of you. You may not hear these officers, and these officers very well probably did come in there knowing modern. And the Aurora Police Department's a good police department. I know several people that have had dealings with them over the years. They're a very well trained police department. So in this situation, these guys, the homeowner may not have even heard it. We'll never know, unfortunately, because he's deceased. But put the gun away, put it down. Like Bob said, if the suspect is still upright, still breathing, still possibly a threat, then put the gun pointed to the ground until you hear the officers, and then start yelling at the officers, "Hey, I'm in here. I'm the homeowner." If you are on the phone and you're called 911, tell them, "I've got this guy at gunpoint. I'm wearing a blue jacket, a black shirt. I'm bald. I'm pretty." You need to make sure that that these guys get a good description of who you are. In this respect, that's what you need to do. And this is going to happen. This is just fratricide sometimes, like on a battlefield. It's just a mistaken identity. A police officer's he's thrust into a situation in a matter of seconds that he has to deal with, and his information is, "I got a call, there's a guy in the house with a gun." And what's he see? The first thing he sees is a guy with a gun. We don't know how this man reacted. We don't know if he had the gun up or whatever. We haven't gotten that situation yet. But until we find out, we won't know. We may never know. But this is a tragedy that could be averted with the proper training.
I'd only disagree with one thing. We will know eventually.
Well,
because this is going to be a huge litigation for on and on and on. I feel, our hearts go out to the officer involved. We've had these kind of things where you're yelling at somebody and it turns out they're deaf.
Yeah.
are, they're of diminished mental capacity, and they don't really know what's going on. These are the ones that have been court. And I've worked in a lot of cases like this, and this is just.
Well, we ran across a lot of it when I was on our tactical teams when we used flashbang diversionary devices. You throw a flashbang in a room with somebody that doesn't have hearing protection on, they're going to get stunned for several seconds. So you have to be cognizant of that fact that when you go in this room, that person may not be able to hear you say, put the gun down, put the gun down, put the gun down. The saving grace in that is, you're in your tactical uniform. It says police. There's no mistaking you for anything other than what you are as a police officer. So in that respect, it's those things that are going to diminish their capacity. Again, that whole tunnel hearing thing, that's going to really work on them when they're in a gunfight. So my heart goes out to this officer. My heart goes out to this family. I hope this family in some way, in shape or form, can understand what the officer was going through, and maybe sees their way clear to understand this better. But it's nobody's trying to diminish this as a tragedy, and like you said, there is no winner on this.
Everybody loses, and I'd be incredibly surprised if the officer ever recovers.
Yeah.
Totally from this. It happens, and who knows? Back when I was teaching academies, we try to stress the cadets out and this and that, and we used at various points a bunch of silhouette targets that are bad guys holding guns or pointing this or holding a cigarette lighter or a cell phone or whatever it is, and have them facing away. We'd have them spin and fire or not fire or challenge or whatever the situation warranted. And when the cadets, of course, don't want to make a mistake. They're not from me doing anything. They get so razzed by the other cadets, And one of the targets I used commonly was a guy holding a shotgun down here, pointed directly at the officer when he spun around, and he's wearing a red jacket. It says police in big white letters. And that target got shot 3 or 4 times every academy.
Yeah.
They're so stressed, they see the shotgun and let go. So it happens in real life in the dark. These are daylight where people can see what's going on. If a bad guy's pointing a shotgun at you, yelling "drop the gun" is probably a suicidal command. I want to talk a little bit just before we're going off the air. This next weekend, the end of this month, August 26 and August 25 and 26, Saturday and Sunday, at the Pavilions here in Las Vegas. It's on Grand Central Parkway, right across the street from the Ruvo Brain Center, if you know where that is a Crossroads of the West gun show. And we missed a few gun shows here because we've had a number of venues decide they don't want to have gun shows anymore, like is happening across the country. The locals will have noticed that. There's still signs up on the Sports Center on Tropicana or Sunset. Gun show May 5 and 6. That was last year, and it was canceled, and the sign's still up. New owners decided it just wasn't appropriate to have gun shows, Anyway, the Crossroads of the West is still going. They're going to be there this next weekend, the 25th and 26th at the Pavilions. At that point, we will have, because I picked up the samples today, some new autographed, that can be autographed, memorabilia, fired up T-shirts and fired up hats. They're orange camo, really slick looking. Coffee mugs and my books on sale and so forth and so on. We will be there. Don Green, our regular attorney, will be there. And, okay, we got a hat we can show. Look at this. These I just picked up. They're the Australian type where you can snap the brim up and look really cool. And I gave that shirt to Lenny. They've even got a neck thing in the back to keep your neck from getting sunburned that tucks up inside. These are really cool. And we're going to have them at the show. They're going to run, I think, right at $20. I will know for sure. I've got the hats. I didn't get the invoice yet. But I believe that. And we should have at that point coffee mugs also with Fired Up on them, new coffee mugs. It's going to be really cute. There'll be a lot of stuff there, and all of this stuff can be autographed and whatever if you'd like.
Bob will be modeling this at the gun store. Sorry.
Why did you pick that size? I
Because
said 2XL, but I think it'll still fit you. Anyway, all of this stuff will be up on our website in about a week. So you can see pictures of it, the logo hats and shirts and coffee mugs and books. Firedupwithboberwin.com, and we'll be selling it online if you wish. I want to say one more thing. If you need a commercial for your internet show or television show, where we tape this show or do these shows live at Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas. First class studio. All this stuff is in high def now. You can tell I got a cut on my forehead. Anyway, he does really great work. It's all high def. Oh, there it is on your screen. You can get a hold of Rick, and the contact email is adsfortv@gmail.com, which may be up there somewhere. But anyway, you can find. Oh, there it is. Visit RigelStudios.tv. Okay, he makes websites. They got lots of websites. So that'll be available to you. Our website is now up at firedupwithbob.com. It has the recent shows on it, and the commercials keep us on the air, and actually, hopefully, this logo merchandise will help keep us on the air. We'll be back next Thursday on YouTube, at the American Guns and Glory Network, and our website. And remember, the audio portion is all over Nevada at Nevada Talk Network on Saturdays at noon. Thanks for supporting Fired Up. We'll be back again next week. Have a good evening. Thank you.